Zach, my mom texted me last week asking if canola oil was going to give her a heart attack.
Your mom and about half the internet, apparently.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Conversation Point. Today, we're actually digging into this seed oil panic because it went from a weird corner of the internet to actual government policy.
Genuinely, Maya, this isn't fringe anymore. The January 2026 Dietary Guidelines now list butter and beef tallow alongside olive oil as acceptable cooking fats.
Wait, official guidelines actually changed because of this?
They did, and they reportedly set aside 421 pages of the Scientific Advisory Committee's own recommendations to do it.
That's a lot of research to just push aside.
There's even a nickname for the main culprits now. Wellness influencers call them the Hateful Eight.
The Hateful Eight. That sounds like a Western movie, not a grocery list.
Canola, corn, soybean, sunflower, cottonseed, that whole family of oils.
So basically the exact oils sitting in most people's kitchens right now.
Which is exactly why this became such a big cultural moment. It's not some rare ingredient, it's the default cooking oil in half of America.
I genuinely didn't know any of this until my mom's text, if I'm honest.
Same, Maya. I found out because a friend posted about switching to beef tallow like it was a personality trait.
Oh, we're getting into that story later, don't worry.
Quick one for everyone watching. Before this video, had you even heard the term seed oil as a health concern, or is this totally new to you? Let us know below.
Okay, so what's the actual argument here, Zach? Like, what's the specific claim against these oils?
The main one is about something called aldehydes, compounds that form when these oils get heated.
And those are supposed to be harmful.
Some studies have linked aldehydes to increased cancer and cardiovascular disease risk.
That sounds genuinely alarming when you say it plainly like that.
It does, but here's the nuance. A lot of that research centers on specific heating conditions, like oils reused repeatedly at very high heat, not just a normal home dinner.
So frying the same oil over and over at a restaurant is different from you cooking an egg once.
Exactly that distinction, which tends to get lost once it turns into a viral health claim.
This whole movement has a name too, right? MAHA?
Make America Healthy Again, led largely by Robert F. Kennedy Jr. as HHS Secretary.
And he's been pretty vocal about this specifically.
Very. He's called these oils the most unhealthy aspect of the American diet, and even used the word poisoning at one point.
That's strong language for a cooking oil.
It is, and that's part of why this became such a big cultural flashpoint instead of just a quiet nutrition footnote.
It's honestly wild how fast this went from online wellness talk to actual federal guidelines.
Which is exactly why we wanted to slow down and actually look at what's proven versus what's more of a claim still being debated.
So tell us, have you seen this aldehyde claim before, or is this the first time you're hearing the actual science behind the panic? Comment below. We're curious how far this has actually spread.
And honestly, if untangling stuff like this is interesting to you, that's basically our whole mission at Conversation Point. So make sure you're subscribed for when it gets even more debatable.
All right, tell me about this friend who switched to beef tallow like it was a personality trait.
Genuinely, Maya, he posted a whole video unboxing a jar of it like it was a luxury item.
Did he actually explain why?
Said he wanted to eat like his grandparents did. Very confident about it.
Very on brand for him, honestly.
He's fried literally everything in it since. Eggs, vegetables, once even toast somehow.
Toast in beef tallow?
He said it was life-changing. I remain skeptical.
My mom, on the other hand, hasn't actually switched anything yet. She just panicked, texted me, and kept using the same canola oil.
Concern without actual behavior change. Very relatable, honestly.
I told her the frying at high heat repeatedly thing probably doesn't apply to her one stir-fry a week.
Which is true. Context really matters here, and that nuance rarely survives a group chat forward.
Have you personally changed anything in your own kitchen because of all this, Zach?
Genuinely not yet. I've got the same bottle of vegetable oil I've had for months.
So you're reporting on the panic while doing absolutely nothing about it personally.
Journalistic integrity, Maya, staying neutral.
Sure, let's call it that.
All right, real talk for everyone watching. Have you actually switched what you cook with because of this seed oil scare, or are you like Zach here, fully aware and doing nothing about it personally? Tell us honestly in the comments.
And if you're enjoying us slowly realizing how little we've actually changed our own habits, stick around, because next we're getting into what the actual science says when you dig past the headlines. All right, Zach, time to actually dig into what the real science says, past the scary headlines.
Let's start with the beef tallow comparison, since that's the big trendy replacement everyone's reaching for.
Including your toast frying friend.
Including him, unfortunately. So here's the thing. There's a 2026 clinical review that looked directly at this comparison.
And what did it find?
Saturated fat from beef tallow actually raises LDL cholesterol, which is a genuine causal risk factor for cardiovascular disease.
So the replacement people are switching to for health reasons might actually be worse for their hearts?
That's basically the conclusion. The review found no evidence supporting tallow as a healthier alternative to seed oils.
None at all? Not even a little?
None that held up compared to the plant-based oils that stay liquid at room temperature.
That's such an important detail people skip past. Liquid at room temperature usually means more unsaturated fat, which is the actual heart-healthy part.
Right, and tallow is solid at room temperature, which lines up with it being higher in saturated fat.
I actually mentioned this to my mom, and she asked why nobody told her that part.
Because it doesn't fit as neatly into a dramatic video about ancestral eating.
Eat like your grandparents doesn't sound as catchy with a cholesterol chart attached.
Exactly. Nuance rarely goes viral the way fear does.
There's also that detail we mentioned before about the dietitian whose patients are secretly switching to tallow.
That's such a telling little detail about how deep this belief has gone.
Quick one for you all. Did you know beef tallow was higher in the exact kind of fat linked to heart disease risk? Or did the natural equals healthier framing get you too? Be honest below.
Let's actually separate what's genuinely confirmed here from what's still being debated, because it's a real mixed bag.
Good idea, because right now it just sounds like everything's bad or everything's fine, depending who you ask.
Confirmed part first. Repeatedly heating oil at very high temperatures, like deep fryers reused all day at restaurants, does create more of those harmful compounds.
That part actually holds up under real research, not just fear.
Right. That's a legitimate food safety and food industry practice conversation, more than a don't cook an egg conversation.
What about the aldehyde in cancer link specifically? Is that solid too?
That one's murkier. Most of that research is either in animal studies or tied to those extreme heating and reuse conditions, not typical home cooking.
So it's not necessarily wrong, it's just being applied way beyond what the actual research supports.
Exactly. That's usually how a real, narrow scientific finding turns into a sweeping viral claim.
What about the broader idea that seed oils themselves are somehow toxic just sitting in your pantry?
That part isn't well supported at all. Mainstream nutrition science still generally favors unsaturated plant oils over saturated animal fats for heart health.
So the actual expert consensus hasn't really flipped, even though the public conversation has shifted dramatically.
Which is honestly the most interesting part of this whole story to me. Policy and public opinion moved faster than the underlying science did.
That's such a strange gap when you think about it. Guidelines changed, but the actual research consensus mostly didn't.
Which happens more than people realize, especially when a movement gets political momentum behind it.
I think that's part of why my mom got so anxious, honestly. She saw guideline headlines and assumed the science had definitively flipped too.
Which is a completely reasonable assumption to make, even though it's not quite accurate here.
So if someone's watching this wanting a simple answer, what would you actually tell them, Zach?
Probably don't panic about the oil sitting in your pantry, but do maybe avoid the same deep fryer oil reused constantly at low-quality fast food.
That feels like a genuinely fair, non-dramatic way to actually think about this.
So, which part surprised you more? That reused frying oil is a real concern, or that the seed oils are just toxic claim isn't as solid as people think? Let us know.
And if you're the kind of person who actually wants the nuance instead of the panic, that's exactly what we try to do here at Conversation Point. So go ahead and hit subscribe if you're new to us. All right, real debate time. Is this whole movement legitimate health caution or wellness culture overreacting again?
Honestly, I lean toward overreach. The actual science we just covered doesn't support seed oils or poison, full stop.
I don't think it's purely overreach, though. The reused frying oil concern is genuinely real, and most people had never heard that before this whole conversation started.
That's fair. Some of the underlying concern is legitimate. I just think it got wildly oversized once it went mainstream.
I think that's actually the most honest way to put it. A real, narrow concern got stretched into a sweeping cultural panic.
And once RFK Jr. started calling it poisoning publicly, that language alone probably did more to spread fear than any actual study did.
Strong language spreads faster than nuanced research, every single time.
Which is honestly true of most wellness trends, if we're being fair. Simple, scary claims travel further than complicated, accurate ones.
I do think there's something valuable in people questioning processed ingredients more, though, even if this specific target isn't the strongest example.
That's fair, too. Increased scrutiny of the food system in general isn't inherently a bad instinct, even if seed oils specifically got unfairly singled out.
Maybe the real issue is that seed oils became an easy villain, when the actual bigger problem is something messier and harder to fix.
Curious, like what specifically?
We're actually getting into that properly because I think ultra-processed food as a whole is a much bigger, better supported concern than one ingredient category.
That's honestly where I land, too. Seed oils became the headline when the real story might be everything else surrounding them.
Look at us, actually agreeing by the end again.
We really can't help landing somewhere reasonable eventually, can we?
So where do you land? Legitimate concern or wellness culture blowing one narrow finding way out of proportion? We genuinely want your honest take in the comments. This one's got strong opinions on both sides.
And if you've made it this deep into a video about cooking oil, you clearly appreciate a good nutrition deep dive. So make sure you're subscribed to Conversation Point, because the next part of this video gets into something even bigger than seed oils themselves.
All right, Zach, let's follow the money on this one, because there's a real business story hiding behind the health debate.
Companies are already moving fast on this. PepsiCo and Real Good Foods have both announced they're removing seed oils from products.
Actual major brands, not just small wellness companies.
Restaurants, too. Boa Steakhouse, Steak and Shake, and Sweetgreen have all announced menu changes around this.
Sweetgreen, too? That surprises me. They've always marketed themselves as the health-conscious option.
Which honestly shows how mainstream this pressure has become. Even brands built on health messaging felt they had to respond.
That's actually smart business, regardless of the science, if enough customers believe the claim.
Right. Perception alone can shift a company's decisions independent of what's actually proven.
Curious. What about the swap itself, though? Is it actually feasible for these companies?
Not easily, honestly. Alternatives like olive, avocado, and tallow are more expensive, less consistent in quality, and less shelf-stable.
So companies are making a costly, complicated switch based on a claim that's still genuinely debated in the science.
Which tells you the cultural pressure here is strong enough to override normal cost logic.
There's also this whole beef industry angle we haven't touched on yet.
Right. One science outlet actually called this the beef industry's best marketing cycle in decades.
That's a genuinely blunt way to put it.
But not inaccurate. When beef tallow gets positioned as the healthy choice, that's a massive win for an entire industry.
To our audience, quick question for everyone. Has your local grocery store or a restaurant you go to actually changed anything because of this? Tell us what you've personally noticed on shelves or menus.
Let's actually dig deeper into the government side, because this is genuinely unusual for how these guidelines normally work.
We mentioned it before, but let's really sit with it. 421 pages of the advisory committee's own scientific recommendations got set aside.
Right. That committee is normally made up of independent nutrition scientists reviewing the actual research before guidelines get written.
And this time, their conclusions basically got overridden?
Largely, yes. The final guidelines leaned much more toward the MAGA position than the committee's own research supported.
That's a real break from how policy usually gets made in this space.
There was also an earlier federal report specifically on this, looking at potential drivers of childhood chronic disease.
Did that report actually back up the strongest seed oil claims?
Not fully. It took a more moderate tone than expected and actually called for more research before drawing firm conclusions,
So even the government's own report admitted the science wasn't fully settled.
which makes the guideline change feel more political than purely evidence-based, if we're being honest about it.
That's a pretty significant thing for regular people to actually understand, though. Guidelines feel official, like settled science, even when they're not.
Right. Most people assume dietary guidelines are just a neutral summary of research. They don't realize how much political judgment can shape the final version.
Personally, that actually reframes this whole thing a little for me. I assumed the guidelines changing meant the science had changed too.
Which is a completely reasonable assumption, and exactly why this whole story matters beyond just cooking oil.
It's less, here's proven new information, and more, here's a policy decision shaped partly by a political movement.
That distinction is honestly the most important thing we've covered in this entire series.
Did you know dietary guidelines could shift this much without the underlying research fully backing it up? Let us know if that changes how you read nutrition headlines going forward.
And if this kind of behind-the-scenes policy stuff is exactly the kind of thing you want more of, that's genuinely our favorite type of episode to make here at Conversation Point. So stick with us and hit subscribe if you haven't yet.
All right, the real debate. Is this genuine public health reform or industry lobbying wearing a health movement's clothes?
Honestly, I think it's genuinely both, tangled together in a way that's hard to fully separate.
Walk me through that.
The underlying instinct, questioning heavily processed ingredients, comes from a real, sincere place for a lot of people involved.
The MAHA movement does frame itself as a genuine populist pushback against corporate food influence.
Right, but one science outlet made a pretty sharp point about that framing specifically.
What'd they say?
That a movement which discarded 421 pages of scientific recommendations and handed the beef industry its best marketing cycle in decades isn't really a revolt against corporate influence.
It's just trading one set of corporate winners for another.
Exactly. Seed oil companies lose, beef and animal fat industries win. The corporate influence didn't disappear, it just changed hands.
That's such an important reframe. It's not science versus corporations, it's which corporations benefit from this particular version of the story.
Which doesn't mean every person caring about this is being cynical or manipulated, to be clear.
Right. Plenty of regular people are genuinely just trying to eat healthier based on what they're seeing and hearing.
It's more that the movement itself, at the top, has real financial winners attached to the specific direction it's taking.
I think that's honestly the most useful lens for me going forward. Question the specific claim, but also notice who actually benefits if it becomes accepted truth.
That's a genuinely healthy way to approach any nutrition trend, honestly, not just this one specifically.
Look at us, landing on something actually useful instead of just picking a side.
We keep doing this, Maya, starting ready to argue, ending up agreeing on the nuanced version.
Maybe that's just who we are as hosts at this point.
So here's our question for you all. Do you think this is a genuine, if imperfect, health reform movement, or mostly industry interests reshuffling under a wellness banner? We want your honest read on this in the comments.
And there's one more angle we haven't gotten to yet, which honestly might be the biggest piece of this whole puzzle. So make sure you're subscribed to Conversation Point for that next. All right, Zach, time for the bigger piece we kept teasing. Ultra-processed food itself.
This is genuinely the part that surprised me most while researching this whole topic.
Americans get about half their daily calories from ultra-processed foods on average.
Half, Maya, not a small snack habit. Half of everything people eat in a day.
And that's been consistently linked in actual studies to higher rates of obesity and chronic disease.
Unlike the seed oil claims, which we found genuinely mixed, this connection is much more consistently supported.
So why did seed oils get all the attention instead of this much bigger, better proven issue?
Probably because seed oils are simple. One ingredient, one villain, one easy swap to feel like you fixed something.
Ultra-processed food is messier. It's not one ingredient, it's an entire category covering thousands of products.
Right, you can't just swap ultra-processed for one clean alternative, the way people swapped canola oil for tallow.
That actually makes a lot of sense with my mom's reaction too. She panicked over one specific oil, but never once questioned the actual packaged snacks she still buys constantly.
The exact pattern we're describing, playing out in your own family's kitchen.
Genuinely, Zach, I didn't even notice it until just now saying it out loud.
It's such a human tendency, honestly. Simple, specific villains feel more actionable than big, complicated, systemic problems.
Quick one for everyone watching. Did you know ultra-processed food made up roughly half of average American calories? Or did seed oils feel like the bigger threat to you before this video? Let us know honestly.
Let's dig into why this specific villain got chosen, because it's honestly a pretty smart pattern once you see it.
Go on.
A single ingredient is easy to name, easy to blame, and easy to market an alternative for. Ultra-processed food as a category doesn't give you that clean story.
Right. Stop eating seed oils fits neatly into a video title or a supplement ad. Restructure your entire relationship with packaged food does not.
Genuinely, that second one would make a terrible thumbnail.
Why everyone's terrified of a vague, enormous food category doesn't exactly scream, click me.
Which is honestly a little ironic, considering that's basically what we're making right now.
We're the exception, apparently. Slightly self-aware, mildly hypocritical.
There's also a convenient villain-to-hero pipeline built into the seed oil story. Bad oil, good alternative, clean before and after.
Ultra-processed food doesn't have one clean hero swap. You can't just replace it with one trendy alternative ingredient.
Fixing that problem actually requires cooking more, buying differently, and generally more effort than swapping one bottle for another.
Which is probably exactly why my mom fixated on the oil and not her pantry full of packaged snacks.
The oil felt fixable. The snacks felt like a whole lifestyle overhaul.
That's such a human, understandable reaction, even if it's aimed at the less important problem.
It also means companies get to look responsive without doing the actually hard work. Removing one ingredient photographs a lot better than reformulating an entire product line.
Agreed. So swapping the oil becomes a symbolic gesture more than an actual meaningful health improvement.
Might be the most important insight from this whole series, if I'm honest.
Does this reframe how you think about your own pantry? Are you more worried about one specific ingredient or the bigger picture of how processed your overall diet actually is? Tell us honestly below.
And if this whole deep dive changed how you think about a headline you'd already accepted, that's genuinely the entire point of Conversation Point. So make sure you're subscribed before we wrap this one up.
All right, let's actually close this whole thing out. We covered a lot today, Zach.
From your mom's panic text to actual federal dietary guidelines, that's a genuinely wide range for one cooking oil.
Poor canola oil, dragged through an entire cultural moment.
It never stood a chance once RFK Jr. got involved.
So here's my honest final take. The seed oil panic isn't purely baseless, but it's genuinely overblown relative to the actual evidence.
I'd say the same. There's a real narrow concern about reused high-heat frying oil, but the broader seed oils are poison framing doesn't hold up.
And the replacement everyone's rushing toward, beef tallow, doesn't even have solid evidence behind it either.
If anything, the actual research points the other direction on that swap.
I actually texted my mom our whole "don't panic about the pantry oil" conclusion earlier today.
What'd she say?
She said, quote, "Then why did the government change the guidelines?" Which is honestly a completely fair question.
That's basically the exact confusion this whole episode was trying to untangle.
I told her guidelines can shift for political reasons, even when the underlying research hasn't fully caught up, which is exactly what we found today.
Did that actually land with her?
She said she'd think about it, which from my mom is basically a full agreement.
High praise, genuinely.
What about your friend, the toast and tallow guy? Any updates there?
Still going strong, unfortunately. Sent me a beef tallow popcorn recipe just yesterday.
Popcorn. In beef tallow.
Yep, he's fully committed at this point. I don't think one video is going to change his mind.
Fair enough. Everyone's allowed their own kitchen experiments, even the questionable ones.
As long as people are making informed choices rather than panicked ones, that's really all we're hoping for with this episode.
So here's our final ask. Go check your own pantry and actually think about whether you're more worried about the one scary ingredient or the bigger picture of what you're eating overall. Tell us what you find.
Thank you all so much for sticking with us through this entire deep dive into cooking oil, government policy, and apparently beef tallow popcorn.
A truly unexpected combination of topics, even for us.
If this episode gave you a clearer, less panicked way to think about nutrition headlines, that's genuinely everything we wanted out of it.
So make sure you're subscribed to Conversation Point because we've got plenty more of these myth versus reality deep dives coming.
We'll see you in the next one. Go enjoy your dinner, whatever oil you decide to cook it in.